almost 30% of the way through the season, and the evidence is in, the home run swing to bring Rudy Gobert to Minnesota isn't really working. Brought in to improve their 13th ranked defense from last year, they've sunk even lower in the rankings. With two big men out there, the Timberwolves are still giving up a ton of offensive rebounds and putbacks, something that simply should not happen with Gobert out there. They're also giving the ball away at an alarming rate, taking away prime chances to score, often with the other team turning it into a quick bucket on the other end. And the one thing that could help you overcome these fundamental and potentially fatal flaws is three-point shooting. But they've taken a huge step back from long range, taking the 10th most threes in the league, but missing more than all but 3 other teams. The first thing that stood out to me is transition threes. On this wild one, D'Angelo Russell is trailing the play to the left side despite 2 defenders in that area already. He does quickly recognize this and tries to tell Anthony Edwards to get out to the weak side wing, but Edwards doesn't recognize he needs to leave his own man until it's too late. The communication is almost non-existent getting back in transition, but it's also the speed they're running at. I know his nickname is Slow-Mo, but don't you think Kyle Anderson could run just a bit faster on the closeout? Edwards tends to get lost out there as he has no idea the trailing Wiggins is his man, and the Warriors are not going to let you get away with that. Here, Edwards is again not recognizing where his man is. This time it's the sharpshooting Buddy Hield, and you give him that much room, forget about it. But when teams go small on the Wolves, they can expose some real flaws on the break. Karl-Anthony Towns loves to get to the paint while getting back, but that leaves Wiggins wide open from the corner. Here's the same issue. Despite knowing that Miles Turner is a legit threat from back there, Cat is sunk too low, and that's a practice shot. With both Cat and Rudy in the game, it's not hard for teams to sprint to the corners and hunt wide open shots when the two bigs are too slow of foot to get anywhere near the shooter. After the silly steal attempt by Anthony Edwards deep in the backcourt, we'll find Towns below the dotted line with no idea where his man is as Turner nails another triple from the right wing. Rudy often has no chance to keep up with these small ball lineups, and the Heat don't push it that fast, yet Gobert can't get anywhere near close to an elite shooter who lights it up from the left wing. And it's Rudy's turn to be lost and just wander into his usual spot in the paint. He doesn't realize Kevin Love is his man, and a little skip pass forces an X out, and he's too slow to get to the corner to stop Darius Garland. Another fascinating thing that caught my eye is their penchant for giving up threes on handoffs. It might seem totally random, but it was way too many to ignore. The defenders all consistently go underneath the handoffs, even to excellent shooters, and the results speak for themselves. This is something the coaching staff is going to have to fix very quickly, or else teams are going to start capitalizing on it even more, maybe because they've seen this video. A huge issue with the Timberwolves offense is their turnover percentage. They're currently ranked 27th in the NBA, and one reason players struggle with mistakes related to focus is because they're not getting quality sleep. Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell are all turning it over a ton, and I bet if they slept on a bare mattress, these miscues would be eliminated completely. Bare Mattress creates premium mattresses designed to upgrade your sleep, improve your lifestyle, and overall quality of life, and they conveniently ship them right to your door for free. I filled out this Bare Sleep quiz filled with terrific questions about how I sleep, what position I like to sleep in, and how my body generally feels after I wake up. So you're going to get the perfect mattress. I got this baby right here, the Elite Hybrid King, cool to the touch with copper-infused memory foam that feels like I'm on a cloud. I'm tagging Rudy Gobert with this one. With better sleep, I'm sure he'll stop fumbling the darn ball. When it's delivered, it's rolled up in a box, so it's easy to get in your bedroom, then it magically expands within about 30 seconds. I've been sleeping on it for a week and I can't get over how quickly I fall asleep once I get in bed. And I've been tracking my sleep quality and it's as high as I've ever seen it. Best of all, they're Green Guard Gold certified, CertaPlus US certified, and EcoFlex fiberglass free, which means you can lie on them knowing you're completely safe. They do have a 120-night sleep trial, so you get more than 3 months to make sure you love it. Don't blame stress or blue light for your sleeping issues. It's probably your mattress. So click on the link below to take Bare Mattresses sleep quiz, and if you use my code BBALLBREAKDOWN, you'll save 30% off your order. The whole Minnesota team should be ordering one. They'd sleep much better, perform on the court better, and all because they used my code BBALLBREAKDOWN and saved 30%. But no amount of extra sleep is going to help Rudy Gobert have better hands. I've been pointing out how bad they are for years and years, and while there's been some improvement, he's never been able to get even close to average in the hands department. And it's because of his inability to control the ball consistently, he'll make the most astoundingly strange plays that might not even be considered turnovers, but might as well be. While he's getting credited for a lot more post-ups this year, which I'd scream is a huge mistake, most of them are not traditional post-ups on the right or left block and an entry pass from the wing. Instead, they'll roll him to the basket and then have him duck in, preferably against a much smaller defender. Here's another example of a pick and roll that forces a switch, so he has a huge height advantage. He gets to be in the lane for a full 5 seconds before the alley-oop comes. Another issue refs might start emphasizing, since I saw it happen a few times. And for every time he actually does uncork a pretty good move with some balance and good footwork, which leads here to a foul and free throws, he does at least one of these, moves the pivot foot before dribbling to commit the cardinal sin, a turnover on a post-up. When you get the ball down low like this, you've got to at least be able to get this shot off. But the high volume turnover guys are their main ball handlers, and you've got to look at them as well. Another pattern emerges when studying their half-court turnovers, the forcing of pocket passes to the roll man out of the pick and roll. Time and again, poor decisions to try and fire a pass into too small an area results in runouts for the other team, and what should have been a strength in their offense has become a highway for the other team to attack on their end. Perhaps they're still adjusting to Rudy on the court, but I would say it's way past the feeling out period, and they should have been able to figure out how to stop throwing it to the other team by now. That said, they have been able to utilize Rudy's gravity as a roll man and diver to the rim to open up great looks from behind the arc. Watch how two defenders are so concerned with Rudy's roll that it opens up the easy pass to the left wing where Russell can tee it up, only to miss it a few inches short. Here it is again with the Spain action as Rudy takes Cat's man with him, opening up the pop-out top for a good look that finishes way short. Again, Gobert's gravity sucks in the weak side defender, leaving Jalen Noel so wide open he can lick his thumb and check the wind direction, but to no avail. Just finding a touch for him in the paint serves to turn all the defenders' heads, inviting a double team even, with Edwards getting the wide open spot-up shot, but it's not even close to going in. And even against this zone, his awkward run to the rim knocks one defender over and opens up a wide open shot for Edwards, who just can't hit it. The thing is, look at the career percentages of their top 4 shooters. Only Towns is a guy who could get back to elite status, but I'm afraid there won't be any room for the other guys to shoot any better. Edwards is a high set point that causes a 2-motion shot, so I doubt he ever gets better than 34 or 35%. Russell is a wild card and very unpredictable. His shot mechanics look okay to me, but it's his nature to be inconsistent. And Noel has shown flashes, but there isn't a huge body of work in his past that proves to me that he can fill the role they so desperately need and lost when Malik Beasley was traded for Gobert, the athletic, defensive presence who can also hit threes at an above-average rate. One more thing that's also been alarming considering how they put this team together. The Timberwolves are currently ranked as the 5th worst team in giving up offensive rebounds to their opponent and second chance points. But they themselves are only ranked 21st in how many offensive rebounds and second chance points that they're getting. With Towns and Gobert out there, how is this possible? Too often you'll see Rudy make a brief attempt at a box out, but then find himself behind the offensive players, helpless to stop them. With both bigs in there, they induce the exact shot they want, but Rudy allows himself to get slightly pushed underneath and Towns can't get in there to prevent the putback. Rudy doesn't challenge the shot, but then is also unable to hold his position for the rebound and can't get back in the play. With both big men in there, I'd hope to see great pursuit of the basketball, but time and again, they're beaten to the ball while standing flat-footed. They've been slow to read the ball flight, not aggressive enough to get the board, and here's Rudy's bad hands coming into play as he can't corral the wild miss and can't react quickly enough to stop the putback. On the other end, one issue with Cat out there is that he loves to get back behind the three-point arc and act like a guard. As a result, he's often not anywhere close to the rim to even go for the offensive rebounds on short shots off of drives, normally the best time to get an easy 2 points. And with Gobert, sometimes it's too easy for a little guard to get inside position and keep him from the ball, something that shouldn't happen as often as it does for a guy who's a legit 7 feet tall with a 7'9" wingspan. It's crazy to me how easy it was to find these clips, and he's allowing these shorties to box him out so easily. And as a result, the Wolves' offense is suffering on a number of fronts. I brought in Dane Moore, who's been reporting on the Wolves independently and doing great work with his analysis on Twitter to discuss in more detail what he's seeing from this team and if they can turn it around. So, Dane, thanks so much for coming on and breaking this down for us. I needed someone who's watching the Wolves a lot more than I am to just give us an overview on what's going on here. And I have to imagine the first thing we would look at is maybe lineup data and maybe the Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. What's not quite working as well from your eyes?
Yeah, well, if we want to start on the offensive side of the ball, I think that's the most interesting one with Gobert and how they came in intentional about not being a spread pick and roll team, as obviously the Jazz were for many years, and they've tried to really, the term they use is unlock Rudy in the post, and it's led to a lot of Rudy Gobert post ups, and when it's worked best, it's kind of been some high lows from Cat to Rudy, but it was a bit jarring, and still is, honestly, how infrequent pick and roll is happening from the Wolves just in general. When you added maybe the best screening big in the league, who has had a ton of success there, so that would be on the offensive side of the ball the thing that stood out to me most, and I think has held them back offensively.
So, I've seen some of this stuff now as I'm digging through some of the footage of sort of Rudy Gobert post ups, like intentionally telling him, hey, you go down there and we're going to throw you the ball and we think that you're going to score. What evidence do they have of this from his career that I have missed? Can you help me with that?
They don't. I think the idea though is aspirational in a way that would solve some of the issues that Rudy had in the playoffs. I mean, Nick, from having watched those playoff series, that the narrative that Rudy got played off the floor for his defense is not factually correct. The reason was that he could not go down on the offensive side of the floor and take advantage of a 6'6" guy in the post. So I think part of the idea, I've asked Chris Finch about this numerous times, is this idea of playing away during the regular season that they feel that they will need to play to maximize this group in the playoffs. And I get fragments of the logic of that. I get a lot of the logic of that. But you are also trying to build something during the regular season to get you to the playoffs and a position where that will even really matter. And so what I've been kind of waiting on is like, okay, maybe we can put that to the side for a while, maybe solve that issue later. Let's get this offense working. Let's actually get this flow that Finch is talking about all the time. Let's run some pick and roll. Let's do what Rudy does well, and theoretically should actually unlock D'Angelo Russell, who's been the player who struggled the most offensively for the Wolves thus far.
Well, my other worry then would be Anthony Edwards, who in my mind was on a trajectory to become an MVP of the league based on what we'd seen so early in his career. And how do you see him being held back or not on offense with Rudy out there?
Well, I think first, that was an aspirational view of Anthony Edwards at 20 years old, 21 years old. If all you watched was the playoffs, not that this was you, but I think for a lot of people, right, broadly, you saw Anthony Edwards in the playoffs. And what Anthony Edwards was in the playoffs is only a player that flashes from time to time in the regular season. There is nothing about Anthony Edwards' game that is consistent. It has those highs, but it has major inconsistencies that he talks about to us almost every game. Lapses of focus, just being turned on sort of for the game, these youthful things. And for me, I need to see like palpable improvement in getting out of some of those immaturities before I can really elevate his ceiling to that level. And mostly that shows up on the defensive end, man. Is like you're playing drop coverage with Rudy Gobert, and you have no point of attack defenders on this team outside of Jaden McDaniels. I think it was extremely aspirational term I keep using to believe that you were going to be able to defend on the perimeter after trading away Patrick Beverley, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt, who I think is a super underrated perimeter defender too. Now you just have McDaniels, and whenever anyone else is out there at the point of attack, it doesn't work. Anthony Edwards included. He struggles on ball navigating screens, and he really struggles with his off ball awareness as well. He has not made the leap defensively. It's still kind of the same player as last season, where it's these explosions, nothing consistent, and no real development on the defensive end.
Fair enough. You have to forgive me when I see a 20-year-old at the most pressurized stage,
Sure.
doing things like that. I assume that there's a trajectory. He'll continue to improve, and he will. But he's actually matching the production he did last year, which is, in my mind, I was worried it was going to go down a little bit, but he's at least holding steady there, whether it's inconsistent or not. Well, there's got to be. I wonder if there's anything else that's kind of gnawing at you when you're watching this team that like perhaps other people aren't seeing, that you want to break it down for us.
Yeah, well, I think one of the big things is defensive rebounding has been such a major issue for this team, and that was an issue last season, right? It was part of the big idea behind bringing in Gobert was that in that playoff series, they got crushed on the offensive glass. They were the worst defensive rebounding team in the league last season. But Nick, as you know, so much of that had to do with the way that they were defending pick and roll last season. They were having their high hedge, their high wall, as they called it. They put 2 on the ball every time. They're the most aggressive defensive team in the league. Obviously, that's going to expose you on the back end when it comes to rebounding, and it did. That's why they bring in Rudy, and now we're 21 games in the season, and they're still one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the league, and it's killer. It's just killer. These offensive rebounds, extending possessions, particularly in close games. That was the main thing they brought Gobert in here for, was to defend the rim and rebound the ball. And as a team, they have not been able to do either of those things at anywhere near the level that people anticipated coming into the season.
That it's just fascinating. I think.
What do you think it is? Honestly, why do you think they can't rebound when they have Rudy Gobert and they are playing drop coverage?
I mean, listen, Rudy Gobert is just a frustrating experience for me to watch. It's been that way his entire career. I probably get more stuck watching on the offensive end, and seeing the foibles there, and then seeing the team trying to do things that clearly they shouldn't be doing, like throwing it to him, if it's not like, above the rim. So, but listen, the defensive things too, for a guy that's supposed to be the creme de la creme, to use the French term, of defense, there are enough, possessions where he isn't effective around the rim at all in his awkward, gangly way, or he doesn't quite read the situation, get over there. There's enough where he does, so he's obviously a positive on the defensive end, right? But I just see a lot of times where he just is unaware of like the guy driving behind him and doesn't get over there, doesn't get a hand up, and so it's frustrating. And I'm not sort of surprised. I suppose the last piece of this puzzle is, are these guys getting along at all?
Yeah, so I think there's starting to become some frustration in this idea of the two bigs are holding them back in a lot of ways. I mean, one thing we haven't touched on is teams are just, the first quarter scout is run like right away, and the Wolves are taking advantage of there, and it puts a lot more emphasis on D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels to get back on defense. And so there's this kind of frustration within the group. I think, though, that it's a basketball frustration schism. I cover this team when Jimmy Butler was here and was in that locker room. That was a schism, but that was a personality schism within that group. And I don't think that's what this is. You have a lot of guys here, D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, who have never won. They want to make that stamp in the playoffs. Like, they've all got paid. Rudy has that as well, never having really reached a high level in the playoffs. So there is a collective group mentality that we have to do this together. The frustrations that I think are trickling in are, I kind of thought you were going to be able to do a little bit more here, and that's natural. I think, you and I would have that if that was our dynamic there. I say that to mean I've covered teams here in Minnesota that don't like each other. I don't think that's what this is. I think this is frustration born out of higher expectations and the ability to execute taking a lot longer than we anticipated. What's your odds on them turning this thing around and getting firmly in the playoff hunt and in the West? It seems pretty flawed to me. I think they have enough talent to mess around and be a 6 seed and do that. I think the tough thing for Timberwolves fans right now is it's hard to believe in the big picture of this. And you have Gobert under contract for 4 more years, Cat under contract for 6 more years, Ant about to sign his Supermax, McDaniel. I mean, this is supposed to be a long-term thing. And I think that even if and when they do play well, that kind of this idea that it can actually work longer term sort of cheapens maybe that even making the playoffs, which is always an accomplishment for the Timberwolves. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can't point to just a couple of things that they need to fix and have overlying suggestions of this is a different coverage they should run. Because if every one of the coverages we could poke holes in offensively, we could do the same thing as well. So I would need to see significant change for me to be back projecting this team to win 49 games like I did before the season started.
Well, Dane, thanks so much for coming on and breaking this down. You'll have to maybe come back in 25 more games, and we'll see if they've been able to do it. Because I kind of agree. I think this was an experiment that wasn't going to work, like we had seen with Russ going to the Lakers. And it seemed like everyone understood that. But, you swing for the fences, and sometimes you miss. So I don't know. I feel the same way. But definitely come back on, and we'll chop it up some more.
I'd love to. And I'd love to be wrong, too. Like, those are, in all seriousness, those are some of the most fun things when something happens that you can't really figure out how it's going to happen. I'd love to be wrong about how this has started and that they can find some of the rhythm. I mean, I'm gonna be at every one of the games watching them. So I want good basketball. I appreciate you having me on to talk about it.
For sure. And look no further than Celtics, Boston last year. They did this a similar turnaround. So we'll have to see. But thanks again, Dane, and we'll see you soon.